This man can introduce falsehood quicker than I can correct it. Let me just address one point here. He claimed that you have a fully formed bird fossil 140 million years ago, Archaeopteryx et al., similarly dated, but dinosaurs 60 million years ago. Well, that's nonsense. Dinosaurs disappeared from this earth between 60 and 80 million years ago, but they've been around for 220 million years. By the way, we date things, so there's no way in which you can introduce this kind of feeble contradiction because you're confusing the origin of the dinosaurs with their demise. Let me say, secondly, I'm not a geologist, and it's been 30 years since I've had a paleontology course. I do a lot of work in evolutionary biology of different sorts, some of which relates to some I've talked about today, genetics.
Question for Dr. Hovind. The 24-hour day is based on the Earth's orbit around the sun. So how can the first couple of days be 24 hours if the sun and the moon weren't created until the fourth day?
Good question. I think the Bible says that God is light, and it says he made light first, and our day starts at midnight when the sun's not even out. One spin of the Earth is a day on Earth in relation to anything. You could have a day, you could have the Earth spinning in relation to anything, you know. We started at midnight, like I said. So later in Exodus chapter 20, God told his people that I want you to honor the Sabbath because in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth. And same thing in Exodus 31. Here we have clear examples where God lumped all 6 days together as if they're the same. The sun wasn't there till day 3, or day 4, I understand, but there was light before that, and the earth apparently was spinning before that in relation to that light. That would be a real minor question or problem compared to the evolutionist problem that we all came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago, in my opinion.
I'll say two things. The answer to that question is too trivial to go into. It's a good question. We measure a day a certain way. Days didn't appear in that form till 4 days into this story. The story is a metaphor. It's not hey, they were really 24 hours and you can take it to the bank. If that kind of argumentation satisfies you that, oh, well, there was light and somehow the earth was spinning even before it was created to spin, fine. I don't have anything to say about it. I just want to go back one step. I do not believe that Mr. Hovind knows what a mutation is, because he's now shifted his criterion. Now a mutation is something that suddenly in one jump takes you from this species to a brand new species. That's why he's got to have individuals with two mutations matching, because that's the only way Mr. Hovind can imagine two new species arriving. Just like everything has to happen in an instant in creation, just like the whole paleontological record has to be wrought in a few months of this horrendous flood he's describing, so his only image, his blinkered image of how you can get a new species from another species is a single event in a single generation. I mean, there are a whole bunch of biology courses which I'm happy to know your children will be taking that'll explain to them how that works.
Dr. Hovind?
I think that was my response to him. Let's make this the last.
Question for Dr. Trivers.
Yes, sir.
Explain the evolution of a feather.
Explain the evolution of a feather.
From the scales of reptiles.
Well, I just happened to have spent several months working on this problem. How am I supposed to explain the evolution of a feather? Well, it is uncertain how feathers evolved or what their initial function was. It was initially believed they evolved for flight. It later seemed more logical, and there was, again, some fossil evidence that was consistent with it, that they may have evolved for thermoregulation and later achieved a role in flight. They're believed to have evolved from scales of a reptile, and I'm not a bird anatomist, and I've not spent my life concerning myself with every single detail of every single creature, including, in particular, the details as to how feathers evolved.
All right. This biology book says very clearly, bird feathers evolved from the same scales that protected the reptiles so well. Bird feathers are unbelievably complex. Feathers and scales are both made of the protein keratin, but that proves a common design engineer, not a common ancestor. Battleships and forks are both made from iron. It doesn't prove one evolved from a tin can. It proves iron is a good substance with which to make things, okay? And the designer used keratin to create all kinds of things. 1996, Journal of Evolutionary Biology, volume 9, page 140. Hang on. At the morphological level, feathers are traditionally considered homologous with reptilian scales. However, in development, morphogenesis, gene structure, protein shape and sequence, and filament formation and structure feathers are different. Clearly, feathers provide a unique and outstanding example of evolutionary novelty. Now, the guy still believes in evolution. We'll try to fix that. But he says they are unique. They did not evolve from scales. They're just too different. If somebody wants to believe they did, that's perfectly fine. And if you go back and listen to the tape, you'll see several times he said, well, we believe it might have happened, or, could have happened, or something like that. That's fine. I don't care what you believe. It's not science. It's a religion. Face it. Admit it. It's a religion. If you want to believe that, great. You teach that at your expense to your kids. Don't teach that at my expense to my kids. That's all. Thank you. His turn over here.
This will be our last question for Dr. Hovind. If creationists believe the universe was created 6,000 years ago, how do you explain the galaxies and stars, which are millions and billions of light years away?
I don't know that I can do that in the time allotted. I will certainly try. We cannot tell the distance to stars beyond a few light years. I'll show you the problems with that in a hurry here. I wish we had more time. I cover this in great detail on video number 7. Let me get up to, or if you watch, it's on my website too, a long answer to this. Stephen Hawking said, stars are so far away, all we see is a pinpoint of light. The biggest telescope, looking at the closest star, all you see is a dot. To measure the distance to something you cannot touch, you have to use trigonometry. You have to know 2 angles and a side, or 2 sides and an angle. Earth is 8,000 miles in diameter, which is basically 0 compared to star distance. So what they've done to enlarge the triangle is they look at the star in January and look at it in June, and now you have a 93 million mile radius on a circle, which is 8 light minutes. So a 16 light minute diameter. A year has 525,000 minutes in it. So if you had 2 surveyors 16 inches apart looking at a dot 8 1/3 miles away, that's the ratio you have using Earth's orbit as the base, looking at 1 light year. That makes an angle of 0.017 degrees. To measure 100 light years is clearly impossible. That's like 2 people in Pensacola on my roof, 16 inches apart, looking at a dot in Chicago. 15 billion years is clearly impossible. We just simply can't measure those distances. Stars probably are billions of light years away. I don't know. Nobody does. This textbook says you can measure 100 light years. Well, I doubt it, but I'll give them 100. So we don't know the distance to the stars. They could be billions of light years. We also have proven pretty conclusively here in the last 20 years that the speed of light is not a constant. At Harvard University, in '99, they slowed light down to 38 miles an hour. The next year, they slowed it down to 1 mile an hour. The next year, they brought it to a dead stop. This was done at Harvard, Smithsonian, and Cambridge. That's what science is, something repeatable, observable, not hypothetical. At Princeton, meanwhile, they speeded light up to 300 times the speed of light. The speed of light has decreased so rapidly over time that experimental error cannot explain it. Astronomer Barry Setterfield from Australia said. Here's the chart showing the decline in the speed of light. If we had time, we'd talk about all that. The speed of light was apparently exceeded by a factor of as much as 100. Everything's documented at the bottom of the screen and on my website. The speed of light was 10 billion times faster at time 0. According to the Big Bang Theory, the speed of light had to be faster. The speed of light may have changed over history, study says. A shocking possibility is the speed of light might change in time during the life of the universe. Now, 2002, August, Sydney, Australia, said the speed of light may not be a constant. The speed limit of the cosmos is being questioned. There's a new book out called Faster Than the Speed of Light. Thirdly, I think that God made a mature creation. Adam and Eve were full grown. The trees were full grown. It has to be that way. You don't want to make 2 babies and put them in the Garden of Eden and give them a package of seeds and say, here, plant these quick. It had to be mature. A light year is a distance. It's not a time. So if a star is 10 billion light years away, that's a distance. That's not a time. It's 10 billion light years. That's a distance. I don't know how they missed that. The speed of light is not proven to be consistent, so why would star distance have anything to do with the age of the universe? God could have made it, yesterday, if he wanted. I think he made it 6,000 years ago. Everything mature, fully formed, fully functioning. That's my answer. And how'd they say that on American? That's my final answer. There you go. Sorry. Okay.
There is no doubt that the speed of light may have changed over cosmological time, and it would be very difficult for us with our present understanding, as I understand it, and I'm strictly an outsider on physics and cosmology, to prove or disprove whether the speed of light has changed over long periods of time. That it has been increased, the speed in Princeton, is an outright fabrication. You can go to this person and get him to give you the references, and you can chase him down and see if anybody else in this state or anywhere else that has actual knowledge of the scientific work believes that someone has speeded up the speed of light by, what was it, a factor of 300, you said?
I'll show you the reference. Let's see.
300, I think you said. This will be.
That's what the article said. Let's see. All right.
Well, anyway.
Here, New York Times, May 30th, year 2000. So take it up with Mayor, what's his name, from New York. Okay. This is the article just as it appeared on June 4th of the year 2000.
Okay, well, I suggest
Dr. Li Jong Wang.
Yeah, find a scientific journal and see if the conclusion is as described in there. I had one thought before I came over here, and this is the end of the question period, so this will be my last thought. I figured this man probably uses a computer. He probably uses light bulbs. He probably watches a television. He probably makes use of the enormous technological innovations that have come from the scrupulous, careful, detailed, and now centuries-long application of scientific reasoning to the universe around us. If you followed his style of approach broadly, not just we want to teach our children this and that, but took his style of approach towards reality, his assertions about the veracity of the work of other people and so on, you wouldn't come up with a calculator. You wouldn't come up with a ruler. You wouldn't come up with nothing like the computer that he's blessed to be able to use. Thank you.
Dr. Trivers had an opportunity for some closing comments. Dr. Hovind, some closing comments, please.
I certainly enjoy science. I have nothing against science, but the idea that we wouldn't have computers if it weren't for evolution is simply ludicrous. Evolution has... Don't use up my time here. Nearly all of the branches of science were started by creationists. It's the evolutionists that came along and like a leech began to suck the blood out of a valuable science over the last 20 years. Nearly all branches of science were started by creationists, not by evolutionists. I defy you to find me one scientific advancement because of the theory of evolution. The evolution theory is useless. It's not only useless, it's dangerous. We teach the kids they're an animal and then wonder, why do they act like an animal? Well, duh. All these are names of scientists who were believers in creation. So don't tell me that we wouldn't have a computer if it hadn't been for evolution. The guy who invented, like Maxwell, for instance, or Lord Kelvin, and all these guys were